Alright, so I'm going to answer some more questions, but before that, I want to make another comment um, about Tom. So, I have a lot of respect for Tom, and I think that um, he went into this with a hell of a lot of concern and knew that, red flags were immediately going up. And I don't in any way think that he was doing this to make money at first. I don't think he's doing it to make money now, but in one sense, all the sound bites are everywhere, so he's probably like, well, if anybody wants to talk to me at this point, because who knows how many people get a hold of him, and he doesn't have time to. I've actually emailed him, he didn't get back to me. So I realize you have to spend money to talk to him. I don't hold that against him, but I think when he started doing this years ago, it's probably frustrating at this point. But there's a ton of recorded stuff that nobody has heard. That supposedly is like mind blowing. Well, maybe a few people have heard some of it. Maybe Max Wallace and those guys. I'm not sure. But also, one really important thing is the medical report of how much heroin was in Kurt's system. I mean, even with all people that have said how much, we've still never seen anything that says for sure how much. I'm not saying there wasn't. I'm just saying like that's really, I mean, that's pretty important in a sense. It could be. It could help. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to go through some more answers to questions now. The questions seem to come in and they get in a different spot, so if I don't answer your question, I apologize, and I'm going to read over them. Hopefully I don't miss anything. Okay, how were Buzz and Dale Melvins with Kurt? In almost all interviews with them from the 90s to today, they are very sarcastic and disrespectful towards Kurt, the guys from Nirvana. I was wondering if you had anything to say about this. Yes, I do. I think they were always friends. I don't think anything weird. Any sound bites from little bits of conversations that point towards, you know, Buzz being frustrated with, you know, uh, Dave or Kurt or whatever. I think it's not in real context of like how they felt. You know, I mean I know those guys were good friends, and I've read something that within the last couple months, Kurt's, yeah, well, they were the last people to see him. They played a show with him. The Melvins did played a bunch of shows with them up until the last show that Nirvana played. I think they played the last show that Nirvana ever played. And I had heard that Buzz had told Kurt, get out of that relationship or leave and leave everything to her and get out of there like your life depends on it. That was written in a book, so that's Buzz to Kurt, and that's you know, and then you see Kurt's progression at that point, So yeah, I mean that's pretty serious shit, but you know, yeah, they were friends. They were friends. Don't even think otherwise from little sound bites. When it comes to sound bites, that's an important point. Sound bites. Okay. We all live 365 days a year, or is it 4? I forget. Anyway, one of those. Probably differs between how many days are in February. But anyway, Sound bites. Okay, so we do all this stuff 24 hours, all year round, all of our lives. These are little sound bites. And you build a belief around a little sound bite. Be careful of that. That doesn't mean anything, man. You know? That's why I don't like to edit my videos very much. I know Jack does, but I don't like to edit my videos because I want you to be able to listen to me in context and exactly how I'm, what I'm saying, what I'm feeling, everything. I think it's really important. Anyway, let's see. Do you know anything about the March 1994 recordings Kurt did? Thanks for taking all these questions from us. I don't. Yeah, where are they? They're in a safe somewhere, I bet. Leonard Cohen said he'd wished he could have sat down and chatted with Kurt before his death. I want to know if that's an article or something. I'd love to read it or hear him saying that. It would be very interesting, I think. I find that very interesting. Jake Wetton says, oh yeah, the last question was from Aaron B, and the one before that was from Mark Boughton about the Melvins. Okay, Jake Wetton, Wetton. He says he's been following my channel. You seem like a all-around good guy. Okay, he's got a question here, a couple questions. How do you feel about the mentally ill and the way they were treated back then? So, back then, I'm not sure when you're talking about. In the 80s, they were, gradually mentally and physically disabled folks were treated better and better, being put into smaller group homes out of the big institutions like Western State. I worked with disabled folks, so I know a little bit about this. So the institutions slowly got closed down, and that was like, there's a lot of abuse, things like that. In the 80s, I think there was more actually humanly positive things going on. But then again, the mentally ill consistently do become abused. People like Donald Trump become president. Money is taken out of that system that helps them, and that's a fact. I have one of my best friends who works in the in that field, and I know this for sure. A whole lot of money came out of that when he became president. So there you go. Question 2. I know earlier in his life he had strong feeling that he wasn't from this planet, and he felt like an alien. But in his young adult years, you were close to him. Did you ever talk about the paranormal alien life? I did talk about paranormal stuff with Kurt. I just can't remember exactly, because Kurt was one of those people, friends that I had, that was, the conversations we always had were really interesting, and they were, I like to bring up stuff like that with friends. In fact, my girlfriend right now, she's one of the only people I've ever known that I could, talk like on that level with. And we did back then, I only had probably a handful of few friends that, I've always been into like weird stuff that seems you know, that people put in the realm of like, you know, not true, or you know, anything in the paranormal. But I've always known that there's something to it, and Kurt did talk about that stuff. I just can't remember exactly, and I'm sorry, man, but it's like 31, 32 years ago, you know, having any conversations like that. It's frustrating. So you need notebooks you can, you know, write in today, however old you are, so you can look back. You know, I may have notebooks in storage somewhere where I wrote stuff down. You know, there's stuff like my dad kept everything back then, and I bet there's phone bills where back then in the 80s your phone bills would list everybody that you called long distance, and whenever I talked to Kurt, it would be long distance. So I always had to be careful with like how long I talk on the phone, because it always cost money. And if I made a phone call that was too long, I'd hear about it from my parents. So, but I bet you there's a phone. I bet you I'd find at least one phone bill somewhere that could easily have, because we, like I was saying, I mean, we talked not like every day, and we probably talked more like maybe every month or something like that. But I'd see those guys every show. I'd see Kurt. You know, he'd call me if there was a show, or if there was just something going on. I mean, that's a, you know. So anyway, I'm getting off the subject. Do you still have dreams of Kurt and some of the? I do have dreams related to Kurt. I had this weird dream. I haven't had Kurt in a dream for a little while, but I had a dream that I have to read it. I actually did write it down, but it had to do with Kurt had like a Chevelle or something, and I think they wanted to give it to me, and I was like, test drive. I wrote it down. Something to do with this car that was Kurt's, that was being given to me, and I was driving with somebody in it, and they were driving like crazy, and I don't know, something like that. Anyway, all right, let's see. See, Courtney is a narcissist sociopath by any definition. She's projecting as usual. I believe it would have been almost impossible for Kurt not to be. You know, oh yeah, Kurt was actually very humble and not a narcissist when I knew him. I wouldn't say that at all. I'd say that fame and everything may have made him not want to be, I mean, less, you know, like there's the immediate just change in life where everybody's got, you know, I mean, so much change where he could talk about anything he wanted to. He had a little power, you know, for sure. But then it was just became just the opposite. He probably felt more like, you know, I want less attention. So, what do you think Kurt's advice would be? Oh, this is from Zach. Kurt's advice would be to us today in the day and age we're living in. Follow your bliss. Now, I do remember talking to Kurt about Joseph Campbell. When Joseph Campbell had the series The Power of Myth, and he released, that would have been like 1988 or 89 or something. I remember talking to him about that. And I want to say, well, I can't remember, but I remember talking to him about that. And that is a quote from Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. So there you go. That's what I think I think he'd say. I don't know what he'd say, but that's what I would say. And you know, I think that he would say something similar. Okay, so, oh, that was a different, I don't know how much time I have left. Again, this camera will just turn off at one point. Okay. Let's see. Hold on here, hold on. I know where I ended on the last one here. Let's see. Okay. What is your opinion on Kurt's decision to change from Tim Allen, change the way royalties were shared? It seems so against his creed to make such a Axl Rose style decision. I think again he was thinking of whenever that happened and how it happened. I'm obviously probably 1992 or something. It had to do with his daughter. I would definitely think, you know, he wanted to make sure royalties, you know, I don't think he was just thinking for himself, you know. So, when they were making so much money, and Kurt was the main songwriter, you know, I don't think there's any argument with that with Dave and Chris. I mean, I'm sure they'd be like, yeah, I mean, you know, that's how labels do it, and there's probably a lawyer involved too. So yeah, I think mainly, you know, for in the future for Francis. I may have already answered that question. Let's see. What was my favorite Nirvana live show? I don't remember if I already answered these questions. I apologize. It would have been the first show with Dale when they were Ted Ed Fred, right before they actually became Nirvana. And I had asked Dale after they got done playing. I was thinking that he might be in the band at that point, but he said no. Melvins are doing fine, and I'm going. I just came up here to record, and I'm going back. So, let's see. Kind of going over these. I was wondering if the story about Paper Cuts was true on how it was about a woman who locked her child in a room, or was it just a song? I don't know the details on that. If you've read something on that, send them my way. I'd love to hear more. Well, let's see. You actually wrote some comments here, so maybe. Anyway, I'm not going to read over those right now. All right. Well, that's about it for now. Hope everyone's doing good. I'm going to end this before my camera ends it, unless it already did.